Hi everybody, welcome to the show. My name is Bryn. I'm an agency development manager here at Google, and I have been working with Jonathan for about the last 2 years or so. Jonathan is a CEO at KlientBoost, and he's here to share some tips and tricks of what's been helping him grow from a client perspective, from an employee perspective, and the success that he's had in the last 2 years. So thank you for joining and for taking the time to share some learnings with us.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome. So KlientBoost specializes in PPC and conversion rate optimization, or CRO, and specifically landing pages.
Right.
So let's start there. Do you think that it's a good idea to just be specialized on one niche rather than being a full service agency?
It's a great question, and I think there are pros and cons with all of them, and we've had a lot of clients ask us for additional services, and if we don't do them, do we know anybody? So that's kind of like leaving money on the table. But from day one, I was asking myself the question, are there any agencies out there that you know of, and I wasn't asking you at that time because I didn't know you, but other people that I was talking to that are thought leaders in the space when they do everything, like social media management, email, SEO, PPC, you name it. And strikingly, there wasn't, as far as anything coming to mind for a lot of people. And so I was like, well, let us double down on what we think we want to be good at. And at that time, that was PPC and CRO. And so we've been building everything around that, our content that we're coming out with and things like that, speaking engagements. And that has helped us become a thought leader really quick. So instead of being a jack of all trades, but master of none, we focus on just two, which is kind of ironic still because it isn't just one trade, but it's two different things.
They're very closely related.
Very closely. I feel like you kind of need them in the equation, you know? And so, yeah, we've been just doing very well with that and happy so far with the progress.
Yeah, I mean, I think to have a successful PPC campaign, you need a strong landing page. You're almost doing yourselves a favor.
It makes it easier.
It makes it easier.
Easier for us to get results, for sure. Absolutely.
Okay. So let's move on to, I think, what really sets you apart, which is your focus on acquisition and how you grow your client base.
Yeah.
Tell me, in the beginning, how did you start? What was your process of acquiring new clients when you guys were just starting off and didn't have much of a brand name?
So a lot of it was piggybacking off other brands and like what they already have established in their audience. And the biggest thing was me thinking, well, traditional, how do agencies grow? So that they either have like a network, they have referrals, they try to increase the value of their current clients. And I was trying to think, what is the hardest thing to master and also the most scalable? And to my mind at that time, and again still today, it was content. And so if we can again put stuff out that scratches as many backs as possible and gives as much value as possible, we can hopefully see that come back in a form of like internet karma, in a sense, where people then want to hire us because we're showing what we already know. And so in the early days, it was crickets. Like there wasn't a lot happening. But as soon as we've done a couple guest posts on other blogs, again, that had readership and already an audience, that kind of catapulted us and then showed us, okay, this is a good channel that we can keep going on. Let's keep doing this now for ourselves and maybe stop doing the guest posts. And that was like literally it. And a lot of times when we publish these posts, we didn't know if they're going to be successful or not. So a lot of it was just trial and error, and still is to this day. It's very, very unscientific, many of the things that we do for ourselves. Yeah.
But it's worked really well, right? So you give people content, you give them useful information, and then they come back and they actually want to work with you.
Exactly.
So it's really fantastic. In terms of building your brand, is that pretty much what did it, what you just explained? Is there any other component? I mean, you have a unique logos about it and a unique name, and you kind of came up with this whole thing. So tell me more about that.
So thinking about our name now, there's many times where I'd be like, we could have picked a cooler name, but at that time it was like the best one.
It's KlientBoost with a K.
With a K, yeah. And we actually owned the domain with a C, but we decided to be K just to be different. And then also confuse, people think that we're like a German company because Klein meaning small, even though there's a T in there. But anyways, but yeah, also from back thinking when we were starting out, I knew that a lot of agencies, it doesn't take much to be an agency or build one. All you have to do is you have your brain and a website or some kind of presence where you can put up your own ads or just have some kind of storefront look and feel. And so the investment by an individual is practically nothing. So for us to be different, I knew that two things had to happen. One, content, and then two, our branding, our design, our illustrations, our humor, our personality. And so if you go to our website right now and you read some of the bios of the people that we have, they're all written by me. trying to be the person that attracts like-minded, humoristic individuals. So
Yeah.
I think we like turn off a lot of potential clients in that sense, but we also attract the people that we like working with. So as soon as they get on the phone with me, I'm like laughing and giggling and telling jokes like from the start, right? Because that's who we are. And so the challenge then is to make sure that everybody else on the team has that same personality and they reflect that, because when they're hired, like, you know, too, like if you're hired, what you do at home or with your friends is completely different what you do at work, but I would like to be the same thing.
Not a KlientBoost.
Yeah, not at us. So I want to be that same person no matter where you find me. And so that was a big part of it too. And design and illustration is very subjective. But we took a lot of notes from Google, from material design, for example, simplicity, and kind of, if you look at our brand and our stuff that we put out there, it's kind of cute at the same time, which is, again, how do you put a finger on that? So that's kind of like the odd thing, but we know that we want to mingle with the bigger design names out there, even if we don't do just design, but we actually do, you know, conversion-specific scientific design that has a purpose. And so that was another reason for why we started that way.
I love that. I mean, you can kind of feel the culture. I visited your office multiple times. I've met your people. I know your clients as well. So I can feel that culture come through, and it's definitely helped because you get so much inbound volume, both on the client side, but on the employee side, right? Almost everybody that you hire comes because they're in love with the brand, because they read your content. So
there's some way, shape, or form we made them laugh at some point, and then they were like, "This seems like it's almost like a Disneyland for adults. Like, let's come in." And we've had like a negative Glassdoor review, for example, of a past employee that says these guys are trying to be like Google, and I'm like, that's a compliment. I'm okay with that. Like, this is what it should be. And just trying to reinvent what people are used to when it comes to their own experience working. Like, it should be fun. And I joke, here's the embarrassing thing, I joke with a lot of our team, but at the end of the day, I tell them, you know, if there's something that's really, really odd that I like to live by, it's the saying YOLO. Like, you only live once, right? And it's a joke most of the time, but if you think about it, it's like, guys, we're wasting our time. Like, do you want to be doing this? Do you know that you will die someday? And I'm like, let's make it the way you want it, and so it makes sense for everybody. And so a lot of that opens so many more doors that were never open before, and so we get that feedback too. So everybody at the company knows exactly how the company is doing. They know the profit, the revenue, the retention rate, the closing rate, everything that's important to know, and they see that at an individual basis. So there's always a sense that, hey, we're gonna have fun, but you're always going to make progress either on yourself as a person or for the business or whatever you do, you're moving forward in some sense. And that's really that's the idea behind the fun on the outside too. Yeah,
I think every time I come into your office, there's an immediate sense that people really love working there, and your guys work really hard. But they do so because they know they're going to keep growing their own career, and so it's really cool to come there. So let's move to employees a little bit. What's something that you look for when you hire, and what's something that's just kind of a no-go?
So, I mean, just with a lot of companies today too, I don't care much about education necessarily. Like, you need to know how to type, you need to know how to like write and communicate. We had a person before that we hired and then figured out down the road that they typed one finger, and you know, we wanted to help that person out and get them to be, you know, quicker and more productive, but it just didn't work out. So those things obviously have to be there, but more often than not, we look for street smarts. We look for problem solving and figuring out, like, hey, it's very easy now that we're the size that we are, that you can ask anybody, you know, in the office, like, how to fix something or do something, but you're gonna waste your own time and their time too. Like, how do you figure this out yourself? How are you creative? That's really hard to like do a, you know, question and answer kind of interview too. So you ask for experiences and what did you do and stuff like that. And many times we're okay hiring people who have no experience because they have a clean slate, because the way that we do PPC and CRO is very, very simplified in our world, where they're like the 80-20 rule. Like, there's 80% of things you have to do that move the needle the most, and 20% extra is what people are obsessed about, but they're not gonna make a business impact. You know, and those are the easiest things to actually teach. So that's what we look for too. Okay, wonderful. Well, I kind of want to hone in on one person in particular that's part of your team, and that's your partner in crime, Joel Nudstatter. He's really phenomenal as well, right? So he runs the entire PPC department, the account management team. Right. How did you find this guy? And also, what makes him? He works really hard as well. That dude is insane. With you. He is insane. What makes him stay so loyal to you and to KlientBoost? Great question. I think on the outside of work, I'm really good at sports, and I continually beat him at everything. And I know he's going to watch this, and that's why I said that. But he knows it's true too. No, the other thing, the way we found each other was, I think it was an application that just randomly came through. He was moving from Europe basically back to the U.S. and had to figure something out. And I was like, I think we were talking about salary, and he was mentioning his numbers. Like, nah, we'll talk later. Like, I was in my mind, like he was a little too expensive. He was like, no, let's talk. And I was like, okay, I kind of respect that. Like, if you try to push somebody off and they come and they still want to figure things out, there might be like a little bit of go-getting attitude. So we had lunch, talked about the numbers and all that stuff that made sense. And at that time, I was the Joel. I was the account manager, the janitor, like all the hats, and a little bit, not as much to this day, but a little bit. And so what I found from him was something that I also saw in myself, and that was scrappiness. Meaning, when he worked at another company before in the same industry, in AdWords and PPC in general, he didn't have a lot of tools, he didn't have a lot of resources, but he still figured out how to get to the end goal. And he's a guy who will like just be completely exhausted and still keep going because he has so much pride. And so for me to be able to keep somebody like that happy and excited too, there has to be some big carrots involved. And he has gotten those and eaten them as well. But he also knows that like, the rate that we've been growing and the speed at which we've had and how people talk about our content and talk about our brand and stuff like that, that gets him excited too. Yeah. And he is a big part, if not one of the biggest reasons why we've been seeing that success, because of the retention and the results that our clients have been getting. So to keep him happy, just can't let him win ping pong or basketball. That's the biggest thing. And then everything else, money-wise, takes care of itself.
Can I go back to how you guys first met, though? And the reason I'm asking is because a lot of agencies have a difficult time hiring good talent, especially at the higher level, when we get to a director kind of level. How did you initially meet? Yeah,
I wish there was like some magical thing that we did, but it was really lucky at the same time, and it came across. And we had a few other, at least in my mind, candidates that I thought would be a good, like, potential Joel without being Joel. Like, they would obviously have different names. And either the timing wasn't right or we weren't big enough just yet. And we were even thinking about bringing people from out of state that were interested in coming in too. But California is expensive. And so it came down to a money thing. It very easily could have been another person. But I don't think they would have the drive either. So to find people like that, I mean, from the other positions that we've hired for, whether it comes from a director of CRO or the head of biz dev or just like a CMO type role, our content helps out a ton, for one, because it also has that social proof ability. And the second thing is just being insanely transparent, where they almost get scared that you're being so honest with them. And like that's the biggest thing I found. Yeah,
and so if finding the person sometimes can be a karma thing, but what you did really well is you made sure that the way you look at things matches up your culture, and you thought, hey, this fits into what I'm trying to build here. And you guys are still able to work really well today, and you've created an amazing
I think he has like a 2-year anniversary, if not already. I should know this, but I don't. But I'll look at the notes. But yeah, he's been one of the longest standing team members so far. And again, we're still young, so there's much more to do and get. And we're on the verge of doing some cool stuff here at the end of the year, which I think we'll talk about later. But yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm curious, as you have grown and you have scaled considerably in the last 2 years, what's changed in terms of process, how you do things, or how you acquire clients? How do you think about things now?
So from acquisition side, it's been more of the same. We've been growing like our lead volume on a daily basis or on a monthly basis to like see that grow like every single day of new leads coming in. So that's still the majority, which is our content, our blog, basically. We've been doing some pretty cool stuff as of late, where the acquisition and the retention side, which are different departments internally actually are in control of and like are leading. We run about 20 experiments a month. And during those experiments, we're looking for something that's more of like a smoke test. And so we basically say, hey, we're not going to take a lot of time to set this up. We just want to see if there's any minimum amount of proof that this idea might have traction, like a referral program or creating an affiliate division within KlientBoost where we're selling leads instead of being like the client management side. And so we do the same thing for the retention side. And so a lot of times the core of what we do has not changed. The structure of our agreements, the reporting that we do, the weekly phone calls with our clients and stuff like that, the updates are still the same. Because that was like the thing that I've also learned from a previous agency experience that was really good. But most of it has come in these forms of these smaller smoke tests that are really, really quick experiments. And then if we find that an idea has legs, we roll it out fully in the coming months afterwards so that we know, okay, this is actually an idea where, for example, let's say we have a 3-month agreement. At the 2-month mark, at the end of 2 months, we do a QBR with the client. And we basically start setting goals for the future. So even though they don't have to continue at that time, they know that we're thinking about other things to actually accomplish for them. And that is something like would be helping on retention rate, for example. Or hearing more from me if I close them or somebody else closes them, that person comes back and does like a little survey. But we have enough time still to make adjustments depending on the feedback we get, things like that. So a lot of those small things are part of the bigger picture, and that's what we've been able to do very well.
So some of these tests that you're trying to implement, where do these ideas come from? You, Joel, the rest of the team?
Everybody. It's a brain dump. We have like this Excel Google sheet where we just put in all the ideas, and then we figure out, okay, which thing do we want to prioritize based off what we think it can like mean as far as business impact for us, and how easy is it to actually execute, and then we give ownership. So everybody on the marketing team at KlientBoost, or like Joel and Olivia, for example, that handle the fulfillment, they will be taking over like some retention specific tests and things like that. So we do everything from like changing email signatures with like a little thing that we try to spur conversations with current clients, or we send out like top secret like manila folders to like prospects, and in those envelopes, we have like little poop emoji stickers, and so people can grade.
The poop emoji sticker is an actual thing.
So they can grade. Like, it's just trying to be fun and creative and different, right? Because everybody gets reached out to in a cold way, but like, how do we make it more fun? How do we throw in a guy on a pizza slice that's rodeo riding in the back of space as a GIF in the email, for example? So those are things that we're just trying to do. Like, how do we get people to talk? So yeah.
I think for me, I'm taking away, in this space, right? There's a lot of agencies to differentiate yourself. You have to take some risks, and you have to be a little crazy in some ways,
and luckily,
it's
me. It's a reflection of my weirdness that I get to play with, and so people either hate it or they respond well to it, and so far so good.
So far the numbers have been definitely showing success. Very good. So I guess to wrap up, tell me about things that you've learned, anything that you do differently?
Yeah, I think with everything agency-wise, if you can figure out a way to retain your clients at a better pace and keep improving that retention rate, that's going to be golden for you. Because you'll eventually find new channels to acquire, or you'll be in the business long enough to gain a reputation for doing that. So a lot of times, what we feel like is that everybody knows what to do in certain situations when there's a fire, when things are going great, and when you want to be more aggressive for a client. For us, one of the eye-opening things is having like one-on-one time with everybody and talking to them about, like, from the outside, even though I'm not part of their daily routine, I can see what they might be struggling with, whether it be confidence or something like that. And I wish that I would have started doing that earlier rather than later, because you think that you can copy paste, and grow a company and follow processes, but when you get bigger, the cracks get wider too, and things keep slipping through. And so these processes and systems, if I were to ask you, hey, can you follow up with that person or that client on a monthly basis? And like, you'll say, yeah, and then you'll do it the first month, but then you didn't set a calendar reminder for yourself the second and future months. Like, those are the kind of things where you almost have to like spoon feed some people, not because they're not capable, they're all very smart, but there's just so many things going on in the agency world where people just forget, and it's not because they want to. So being very, very systematic is something that I was all against in the beginning because I wanted to go fast and go move quickly. But I now see that it's needed because now we can actually have a stronger foundation to then build upon from there.
Yeah. I mean, to get one-on-one time with the CEO from all different levels, I think is very motivating for people as well. So I like it. You just have to find the bandwidth and find a way.
Which is weird because I'm just a guy, and I'm not the CEO. I never call anybody an employee either. I'm like, you're a team member, like teammate. I would call you if you were a sports team. And people are like, yeah, I work for you. I'm like, no, you work with me. Like I'm not, like we're doing this together and you're part of this growth and I'm setting goals for you as you would set goals for me. So keep me accountable too. And that's, I think, very, very empowering for people.
I find the sports analogy and team and the competitiveness works really well. And I see that in Google here as well. We actually look for kind of people who have athletic backgrounds as well.
Oh,
so
interesting. Well then, are you guys hiring?
So do you want to give us a sneak peek on what's coming up by the end of the year?
Yeah, so we've been very, very fortunate to basically have 6 offices in the span of 2.5 years, which gets really, really monotonous and boring. So instead of actually going to the next office and opening it in Orange County, we're going to go across the country and potentially go to New York or Toronto.
Nice.
And if that works out well, I think the third one would actually potentially be here in the Bay Area.
Nice.
So that's something we're working on, hopefully by the end of the year. And the second thing is actually working on a SaaS product. So we are all human driven right now, and a lot of the things that we can do can potentially help improve productivity and effectiveness. And so we're building a tool internally that can help us with that. And again, like a lot of people say, if it works for yourself and gives you value, there's a good chance that other people would find it valuable too.
You can sell it as a product as well.
Yeah, maybe. So so that's what we're going to focus on, and that's kind of what's in scope for the rest of this year.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you.
So with that, thank you so much for being here and just for opening up on what happens internally at KlientBoost. I don't think a lot of agencies are as that open and willing to share with everybody watching. So I hope everybody watching got some tips and tricks about how to hire, culture, making yourself unique. Thanks for letting us learn from you and for being here.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.